Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Studio One. After a very fun and musical inauguration, we now begin the first session of the 8th edition of the Pune International Literary Festival. Before I invite our speakers to the studio, let's see a short film on calling Elvis, Heritage of the Legends. Let's begin calling Elvis Heritage of the Legends with our esteemed speakers. We have with us today Mr. Louis Banks, who needs no introduction. He's often been referred to as the godfather of Indian jazz. Louis Banks is an Indian film composer, record producer, keyboardist, and singer. In 1988, Banks composed the tunes to the iconic Mile Sur Mera Tumhara. He has provided the musical score to a number of Hindi films and two English. His 2008 collaboration as co-producer, arranger, pianist, keyboardist on the album Miles from India was nominated for the Grammys Awards 2008 in the Best Contemporary Jazz Album category. Our next, Mr. Shantanu Datta, has been a journalist for over 3 decades, writing on everything from election rallies to rock concerts. Shantanu began his tryst with journalism at the Telegraph. Later, he joined the Indian Express in Delhi. After spending 3 years there, he moved again to head editions of the Indian Express and the New Indian Express in Mumbai, Pune, and Bangalore. His interactions with several stellar musicians of diverse genres from across the world in these cities prompted his first book, Calling Elvis, Conversations with Some of the Greatest, Music's Greatest, a Personal History. Shantanu is now with the Telegraph Online. Mr. Vinit Alurkar has been playing music professionally in India and abroad since the last 17 years. He is the founder of the Indian jazz rock group Yoga Logic. Vinit performs all over India as a solo artist. Vinit is visiting faculty in Rangstad Gymnasium and a high school in Copenhagen where he teaches songwriting and band interplay based on Indian music. I request Mr. Vinit Alurkar to take the session forward now.
and good afternoon. Welcome to
Good
this
afternoon.
session. Hi, Shantanu.
Hi,
Welcome
hi.
to this inaugural session, and it's lovely to have you here. Uh, I let's start with the book title. To begin with, calling Elvis. I know we have limited time, so I want to squeeze in a lot of questions, as many
Okay.
as I can, and uh, also just to begin with, calling Elvis, how did you come up with the title? And the song, of course, for all the Dire Straits fans, you edged in your memory, and we know the solos and everything. But how did you finally decide? I'm sure you shortlisted a lot of names before you you zeroed down on this one. So can you tell us something about it?
Well, I actually didn't shortlist many names. This was the name it had to be. Now, when that song came out, I we loved it instantaneously, and listening to it over and over again, the one thought that comes to mind is his uh, undeniable love and devotion to Elvis,
Yeah,
and it's a fan's tribute. Just tell him I was calling. Just wish him well. Baby, leave your heartbreak hotel. So I think, and that sentiment is what sort of got me when I decided to write the book. It's just my small little humble tribute to all the great masters that I have been privileged to hear, and hear them live, some of them, and listen to. And while I was in the Indian Express, I used to write a music column. And in fact, the title of the column was also Calling Elvis. And it all started with that. So it was, in a way, it's very personal, and again, it's a lovely song. And
it
and
is.
Elvis is such a person that he's the only one. He has inspired people the world over. One musician, but sort of just connects everybody. Even in India, people who are steeped in classical traditions are sort of inspired by him. You have Ananda Shankar, who played jumping jack flash, and he plays Elvis's teddy bear on the sitar. So
Yeah, yeah.
just it's an amazing reach. So why not Elvis? I mean, he's the man.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Mr. Louis Banks is waiting. Would love to
Yeah,
welcome him whenever he's
right.
joined us. Which this this leads me on to this next question, because it's these interviews that are there. Uh,
Right.
I'm sure they went. You had them coming for a few years at least. So at what point did you start thinking that you could make a book out of these? Because the interviews are central to the book. Of course, you have your own take, and I quite enjoyed it as much as the interviews themselves, about what you thought, what you made sense about the interviews, and what those people were saying, and your personal connect with the artist's music. I think that also comes through very strongly, and I quite enjoyed that as much. But can you tell us when was the point that you thought, hey, I have something here, and I could, it could be a nice book?
Yeah, yeah. That happened at the end of 2016 and early 2017. You will recall there was this huge concert in the States. It's called
Yes, the Desert Storm. Yeah,
the Desert Storm or Desert Trip or something.
Desert. Yeah,
And we had the greats of music perform over 2 weekends. There was Paul McCartney, Neil Young, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, and
Waters.
yes, Roger Waters, yes. And and during that concert, I happened to see a clip. Some of my friends in the States were lucky enough to see the concerts on both weekends, but I just happened to see a few clips later on. And there I had the Rolling Stones played the Beatles Come Together, the song Come Together.
Oh, really?
And Mick Jagger said, this one's a song you might just recognize. It's by unknown beat group.
Yes.
and and I found that incredible. And a Rolling Stones playing a Beatles song after so many years, and it instantly got me back to my conversation that I had had with Keith Richards when a few days before they were performing in India, in Bangalore, sometime in 2003. And I had asked Keith Richards about the Beatles, and I'm a Beatles fan, and this whole thing about Beatles and Rolling Stone fans, and he told me that they were great friends. They would hang around together, and apart from the many things, one line that he said just stuck to me. He said, sometimes we would tell each other that we should have all been in the same band.
Yeah, I read
Yeah,
that. That was amazing. That was
that was an amazing line.
amazing.
And
Yeah, yeah.
since I sort of was reminded of that after so many years, and I just had a few simple questions in my mind, that what is it in the music of these greats that people like us just come back to it over and over again, you know and that was a question. And I thought, well, since I had the privilege and opportunity of meeting a few and talking, why not go back to these interviews and see if there are any clues as to why we sort of hold on to them for so long, and we continue to do so. That's when the journey started, and that's when I sort of went
Okay.
back to interviews, and saw that I could probably put them together. and
Wow.
and
So it's I would say it's pretty recent because that concert you speak of is just a few years back. So I'm glad
correct,
you
that
did.
was
And I'm glad you
yes,
went ahead with it because a lot of the things through your book, YouTube has made everything accessible, and we are living in the world of access, as we all know.
correct,
But there are still
correct.
some things when you curate and you put them together, when you contextualize it. I think it has a soul of its own, and I think that's what the book has. It comes across like that. Uh,
Right.
and
Thank you.
one of the things, since you mentioned the Stones, so let me just give you a juicy nugget because I'm a big Beatles buff, as you know. Here it is. But the Rolling Stones, the first hit for the Rolling Stones, "I Want to Be Your Man," was written by John and Paul, and they gave it to them because they didn't have a number one hit, and I think that was their first hit, and the Beatles gave it to them. They wrote it was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. But
Wow.
going off the Rolling Stones, I mean, just spinning off it a little bit. I read in the McLaughlin interview where McLaughlin refers to the Stones as their guitars sounding untuned back then, and they still sound untuned, and that was like really
Yeah,
amazing.
that was a fun moment. That was a fun moment. John McLaughlin is this great guy. He's an evergreen soul. And so he was surprised that I knew about this Rolling Stone, which I had Stone's performance, that the fact that they had played together. And so when I told him, so he had a great laugh, and he told me that. And of course, it was just I was thrown aback, and for a moment I didn't realize whether he was joking, or he was, of course he was joking, but it was to show what he, the elder statesman of jazz that he is, can sort
Yes,
of get saying.
yes. And with so many amazing musicians. I mean, you look at you this is unreal. I'm not sure if anyone else has interviewed so many. Perhaps they have, but Knopfler, you have Deep Purple, you have Jethro Tull, uh, I mean, Roger Waters, and even from the Indian section we have the Louis Banks, whom hopefully he can join us soon, Dr. L
Yes,
Subramaniam, and Sting. I mean, this is the jazz, the drummers from who played with Miles. uh, this is amazing. I mean, what a trip it must have been in general, to interact with them. I mean, I'm a little jealous, I must say. Yeah, that you because it's amazing, to pick on them and just see them. And so many concerts that you did attend, you do mention that the interviews were after or before the concerts, like the
right.
one Waters was before the concert. And uh, I know those concerts are going to be, all of them are amazing, but somehow in my, with me, what happens is, even though some of the concerts just stick with you
Right.
for some
Right.
reason, that they just stick out of the ones that. So I want to ask you, of the several concerts that you attended, which ones are the one that stick out, or changed, kind of, mind opened, or which were the ones out of the several that you did?
Well, that's a tough one, but I guess I would start with um, the 1994 concert, which was held at Delhi, in Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. It was an Amnesty International concert where you had these greats. Sting and Peter Gabriel, Yesu and Do, Tracy Chapman, and
Wow.
of course the
Wow.
boss, Bruce Springsteen. He came in last,
Oh,
and it was a concert that went on till 3 a.m. in the morning. It's
oh,
unthinkable
wow.
that Delhi allowed this, and there was an almost a stadium full of people, and I was young. We were just about in just started working, and to see these people together, and that was an experience. That was just by the sheer scale of it. It was an experience. And then, of course, personally, I will never forget the experience of watching Jethro Tull live in Bombay
Yeah.
sometime in 1994, Rang Bhavan. They don't have concerts there anymore.
Hmm.
But, I was in Calcutta, and I sort of ran away from office for 3 days to just come and hear them
That
play.
that story is amazing. With
Yeah.
your mom funded. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but
So
I
no,
have
that's
to.
okay.
Your
So that was
mom,
one.
mom
That
gave
was
you
one.
the money for the flight tickets, the one way.
Right, right. One way.
Okay.
And then that was there. Then Rolling Stones in Bangalore was amazing. It started raining, and there was this projection out of the stage, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, they just came out of the stage onto the projection, and they got wet with us all in the
Wow.
audience. That was an amazing moment. And long time ago, when we were kids, when we were in school, OC Bisa came to Calcutta to play. And if you remember, if you know them, they're these a band
Raghupati Raghav, I
band
remember.
of, yes, absolutely, a UK band of immigrants, and they came and
Yes.
they were performing. They played in Bombay too, and they sang Raghupati Raghav, and that was an amazing moment. Just
Yeah.
imagine a band of migrants from the UK coming to India and playing Raghupati Raghav Rajaram Bapu's song in India. That
Absolutely.
that's just amazing. It
And the
just
total,
shows us
total
who we are.
the song I remember because my father played it for us. Somehow he got a recording of it, the audio
I
recording,
see.
of course, back then. And I remember this conversation that he was having with, I think, was it my mother or someone, that they were saying, well, because the version was the OC Visa style. It was very rhythmic and very different, of course.
Right,
And
right.
I think there was some thought that this was a little offensive or whatever. And my father said, no, but
I
just
see.
look at the emotion. Look at the emotion of the whole thing. It's amazing,
Absolutely.
how they. And going off that, just off that, today morning I was looking for some videos of of Louis playing, and he's done this brilliant piano version of Raghupati Raghav Rajaram.
Yes,
And
yes.
you must go and check. If you've heard it, of course, for the viewers, you must. It's absolutely brilliant. It's so subtle, and it just takes you a little into the jazz world and with the chords, and it's really
Yes.
amazing. The whole adaptation. So,
It
well,
would be nice if you could play it. It would be lovely if you next year,
yeah, maybe
a
sometime.
recording or something.
I will play. I have planned to play a song for you, and but
Oh,
I
okay.
will keep that for later. But again, going back, there are a couple of spots which I think are very, very unique, and I'm very happy that you brought them out in your book. Let me start off with Dilip Balakrishnan, this musician that you've written. I think the opening chapter, the first chapter
Yes,
that you've written, and it almost took me to that time and to the world, to the landscape around that time, when Dilip was there, and how he was getting the bands together and how he was writing. And I'm so glad that you did, because one of the things in India that we are missing is any sort of historical recording, or some recording facts of the whole history of these musicians that sprung around everywhere. I'm sure in Pune we have our own um, musicians at the time, 60s, the Waterfront Band, who traveled to Europe. And so I was so happy that you brought it, and you seem to have a personal connect with him. So can you tell us something about him, for the viewers who haven't read your book, about this amazing singer songwriter who was progressive. He was doing a lot of things, and he inspired so many musicians around him that they actually did a tribute concert to him much later. Please
Yes.
tell us something about
Yeah,
it.
that's an amazing. I did not know him personally. I've been to a number of their concerts, and we were young. And that's the reason why I spoke to Lou Hilt, his primary collaborator in the way they would write songs. And Lou Hilt is a bassist, as you know, and he's been with him for a long time. He was with him, and they sort of played the song music together. And what I liked about, and what I think is an amazing achievement for these guys then, was that they did so much with so little. They
Yes.
it was it's an it's an amazing feat. Just the sheer challenge of putting up a concert. Forget about the fact that you're going to play a song, whether it's a cover or an original. Getting past that and then doing your own songs, arranging them, and doing them in a way. The songs were not, simple derivatives of rock music, but these were songs which were very original. But somewhere down the line, deep, deep, deep in the background, you can realize the influences. You can realize where they're coming from, and it's not obvious, but you enjoy them as standalone songs. And the writing, and Dilip's writing was absolutely simple. I sometimes I wonder whether his writing was better than his music, or his music was better than his writing. It sort of meshed, gelled so well.
Yeah.
So there is an album of theirs, and he's done some amazing work. And I think that spirit, they were. I just wish, I just wonder sometimes what would happen if, and what they would produce if High was still around, if Dilip was still around, and what is the music that they would do.
Right.
That thought just is something that's, I never cease to wonder. And I just think that, we would have been richer for that. We would have really been richer for that. But anyway, we have their music. We have some of the songs we still listen to. There is a CD that HMV brought out much later,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
they're wonderful songs. And I keep saying that, those, that CD shares space in my little CD cabinet with the greats, and it's sort of
Right.
legitimately there. You have all the greats, and there is High there. So that's something. And it's not just me, it's all my friends and the guys who've sort of grown up in Calcutta, who sort of think that way.
Right. So, like I said, I'm very happy that you did, because that brings him to, our world, and we are
Right.
curious about it. And, I think it's very important to support the local music. It's not in a cliche sense, but just to know what movements, who pioneered these things, because we are living off them in a way, they inspired
Absolutely.
the next generation and the next. And, you need someone in flesh and blood to play the stuff to
Right.
really
Right. Right.
push it
Absolutely.
for the next generation too. So I think from that angle, I'm very happy that you brought it out, and like you said, you've put it at par with all these. So I'm that too for me was very very
And
uh,
and I
one.
must say that, just because I grew up in Calcutta, I was exposed to Dilip and High and Shiva and all the other Calcutta bands, and those in Bombay will recall there's this great bands in Bombay, Waterfront,
Yeah,
Savages earlier. In Chennai, you had the Mustangs in Madras,
right,
and in
right.
Shillong, you have Great Society, you have the Fentones, and there's some
Yes,
great music happening there. And
yes,
it's the same. This story is there in all our cities, and this
yeah.
story needs to be told. This story
Exactly.
needs.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, Shantanu. I think you're bang on. I want to move on to one topic which I thought I'm not going to bring up, but I am going to bring it up because uh, you do mention at the start that you met George Harrison. Man, what the hell is that? This was incredible. Okay, you didn't get the autograph, but you survived well enough to tell us that tale. That is unbelievable, because I mean, Harrison passed away, as we all know, in 2003, was it? Or
Yes,
two?
two or
And
three. Yeah.
uh, that must be something, man. And please tell us what happened, because you leave it where Harrison drops the T. He's just about to sign your autograph, and because all the people are, I mean, it's the whole Beatlemania all over again, and we all knew, of course, that Harrison wasn't one. He was the least to take to the whole mania, and he. So what was that? Just tell us something about it, please.
Oh, I'd love to. The story sort of concludes. It's there in the last chapter of the book, so I don't want to give away too much. in case there are people who would go on to read the book. But yes, it was an amazing thing. Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan, they were together performing in Calcutta. This was 1983, and they were coming together after about a decade or so. So it was a historic concert. Allah Raka, Zakir Hussain, Ravi Shankar, Ali Akbar, and it happened at the Netaji Indoor Stadium in Calcutta, and I
Mhm.
was lucky. A friend of mine had very good tickets for that. It was a pass actually, and we had no idea that he was in town. George Harrison was in town, but
Oh, really? Oh,
no,
okay.
but a day, or I actually don't remember, but I know for sure we had no idea. But maybe a day before, we got to know. There were these rumors that he was there, but that's okay. That you never think of these things. But then when I entered the hall, and because it was one of those VIP passes, we discovered that the man was sitting 2 rows in front of us, and
Wow.
it was quite something, obviously. And so this book, in a way, is I owe a lot of this memory to this friend of mine who's now in New Zealand, and he knows that he sort of started this. So then he during a break we spotted him go down for a cup of tea, and we sort of followed him down, and that's where I met him briefly. So there were about 10, 15
Woo!
who had just gathered around. He was having his tea,
Wow.
and he was signing on whatever we held up for him. I managed to have the program and a sheet of paper. I don't know where I got that from. And he signed on it, and while he was signing on it, I think there was a bit of a jostling, and there was a bit of a
Ah,
his word had spread that he was down in the cafeteria, and so what he did was he just let his cup drop, just fell on the ground, and instinct everybody sort of just moved away. He just
ah.
back to his seat.
Oh boy.
So so that's the story. Yes, it's an amazing moment,
It
and
is.
while writing the book, I realized that it actually symbolized a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It you had uh, the stalwarts of our music performing, and you had another stalwart of Western music sitting in the audience, and we
Yeah,
all know the relationship Ravi Shankar had with George Harrison, and what
sure.
Ravi George did for the sitar.
Yeah,
So so thinking about it now just gives me the goosebumps that
yeah,
we were there
absolutely.
at the confluence of things coming together, and it was an amazing moment. And the more I think about it, I feel it's blessed and privileged that all those who were there from Calcutta watching that show, it was amazing.
Yeah, and I think you said it because from an Indian context too. I mean, everyone knows his contribution to music in general as part of the Beatles, and then as a fabulous solo musician. He had the Traveling
Yes,
Wilburys, and also his album is still largely acknowledged as the best solo Beatle album, with All Things Must Pass. Uh, but that aside, I think from an Indian context, the fact that he brought the Indian classical music, he literally took it, because
yes,
he had such a following, the kind of following that no one had seen previously, that for him to embrace it, and not just embrace it, but actually bring out in all the major festivals and promoting it actively, he did such a huge service to Indian classical music,
right,
and encourage these cross currents wholeheartedly, because once the Beatles did it, it was like a blessing from the Godfather. And everyone was curious, and I think that was fabulous. But on that note, I'm gonna with your permission, I'm gonna play a song which actually resembles the title of one of the chapters of your book. So hang on, just give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna set up.
wow,
So this is a song by the Beatles, and yeah, I'm just gonna play it. today, oh boy, about the lucky man who made the grade. And though the news was rather sad, well, I just had to lie. I saw the photograph. He blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood instead. They'd seen his face before. Nobody was really sure if he was from the house of Lord. I saw a film today, oh boy. The English army had just won the war. A crowd of people turned away, but I just had to look. Having read the book, I'd love to turn. Woke up, fell out of bed, tried to comb across my head. Found my way downstairs and tried to come. Looking up, I noticed I was late. Found my coat and grabbed my hat. Met the bus in seconds flat. Found my way upstairs and I had a smoke. Somebody spoke and I went into a dream. All right, that was given 3
Oh, well
minutes.
done. That's amazing. That was amazing. Yes, I heard Dilip and Lou Hilt play that song.
Oh yes,
Of them, and they did the entire crescendo thing that happens twice, and it
yes.
was amazing. Just two of them, and they did it on the guitar and the bass, and they had
Wow.
record music back and the back. This was again in the 80s. Unbelievable that such a thing they pulled it off, and it was beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Nice.
What a song.
Yes,
What a
what a
song.
song. And I can
What a song.
imagine. Um, uh, I want to come to Dr. L. Subramaniam. That
Yes.
chapter was again very, very interesting because we all know him as the great soloist that he is. But his whole journey from when he was in Colombo, and I actually had no idea about his father, who pioneered these techniques and who elevated the violin from
Yes.
being an
Yes.
instrument of accompaniment and brought it up as a solo. Much like the Shehnai was elevated as a solo instrument by Ustad Bismillah Khan, and
Right.
that was again. I was amazed to read of all these shrutis and the intricacies uh, that he brought out, and I think a lot of that has been there in the chapter, and I was very happy to read it. Also, the fact that they were there in those troubled times and they had to flee Ceylon, that
Yes.
also.
Yes.
So yeah, how was it? How was it interviewing
You
him?
know,
And
Dr. Subramaniam was. I'm so lucky and privileged to get to know him, and my interaction with him started in Bangalore, and and that time he does this annual concerts every year in memory of his father, the Lakshmi Narayana Global Music Festival, and he
right,
invites musicians from all over the world, and they play together. So this was in Bangalore, and that time Jean-Luc Ponty was among the invitees. And and I was a big fan of Jean-Luc Ponty.
Hmm.
And when I realized that he's going to come, and sort of I was in Bangalore at that time in the New Indian Express, and we sort of got in touch, and I told him about my liking for Ponty, and he sort of instantly embraced me in the sense that he sort of allowed me access to have a word with him, and that's when I got to know about Dr. Subramaniam, and that's when I heard him play live, and I got to know a little bit about his story then. And years later, decades later, he was in Calcutta playing at the Dover Lane Music Conference, where I
Right.
sat up with him again and said hello, and he was very kind to give me some time. We spent about an hour and a half together, and that's when this life story came out.
Yeah.
Incredible journey of and he is this superlative musician, you know. He has deep knowledge of classical music. He has learned classical music the Indian way, and he also has deep knowledge of Western classical music, which he has again studied when he lived in the States. He's toured with Ravi Shankar and George Harrison and the rest when they played together. And so he is among the few, among the few in our country who has, you know, I find I find him to be a living example of the embodiment of the confluence of these two musics. And he is not necessarily trying to fuse the two musics, but when he plays Western classical and when he plays Indian music, it's two distinct things, and he can just do it. And so when he plays jazz or when he plays his own fusion music, it's very, very refreshing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so he's this just amazing human being, and he has stories to tell, you know, and I hope there will be a book from him sometime to
Yeah.
sort of tell us about his journey. It's an amazing journey, an amazing musician.
Right.
He's just, I'm so privileged to know him. He's just
Yeah.
another interesting thing he told me was that while they were touring with this was probably in 1969. I may be wrong. The exact date is in the book. Uh, Ravi Shankar and he played together as a separate show at the Royal Albert Hall,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
separately from the big concert that they were doing. And so he told me that, you know, this was one of the earliest confluences of Carnatic and North Indian classical music. And imagine that
Right.
it is on foreign shores.
Right.
So
Right.
so
Amazing. Yeah.
that's a, yes, that's an amazing thing, and
That's amazing. Yeah.
it's in a way very apt that it happened with these two gentlemen, because they are the
Right.
embodiment of excellence,
Right.
of the music that they play.
Right. And just this little stories of how Ravi Shankar actually gave him that proposition of uh, touring, and how
Right.
he completed his. I mean, I didn't even know that doctor was actually a medical doctorate. I mean,
Yes, yes,
this
yes, he
incredible,
is.
and I like the fact.
Because his mother said that I won't let you,
Yeah,
you know, unless
that
you
is that is so
finish
Indian. That is
your
so
medical.
Indian.
That's so
That is
Indian. Yes,
so Indian. There's no way this story is going to happen in Europe or America, where your mom said you have to do your finish your. This is totally Indian, and I love that bit. That is, he had to do it, and I think what to me the interesting thing was, I don't think his father had a say once the mother said that she has to finish it.
no.
So that was like really cool. That poor guy had to
Yes,
finish. I mean, whatever, it was really funny. And also the amount of collaborations he's done is amazing. I mean, I knew I've seen his symphony where he had written a symphony, and that concert I've watched, and I think I have the CD as well. But the amount of collaborations he's done,
yes.
and this is just one chapter of your book, I'm
Yes,
sure. Like you
yes,
said, if he goes to pen down his memoirs, it's going to be amazing to see what he's done, and just to know
yes.
it.
And
So
his whole interaction with Grappelli and the album that they've done, you know, it's called Conversations. It's a very
yes.
old album, but you know, you see it, you hear it today.
Yeah.
It's still sounds. There is that special something in it.
Sure.
It's a lovely album. Yes,
Yes.
you're right. He's
Yeah.
If you kind of list the people he's played with, It's just the who's who of rock.
It's mind blowing, and the short collaborations too, but very deep. That they are together for a long time, like long hours in a day, and that was very to go into that. I mean, he must be really loving his instrument. He must be he was the top of his game for sure. But to have that zeal, that enthusiasm to readily collaborate and go. That was very nice to see. I think the second violinist you mentioned, sorry, I forgot his name. Do
Jean-Luc
was he
Ponty.
Yeah, the Frenchman. I think was he was he the one who was playing with Zappa and then he went to the
Yes,
Mahavishnu?
yes, yes, yes,
That was also very
absolutely.
interesting. I love that story where he went to Zappa and it was very intense. And how, for me, the interesting bit was how he said that Zappa started losing his perspective. Might be true, might
Right.
be, but he said why he quit is because the Zappa's audience was just, it was too much. I think the line he used is the music was going over them,
Over
and
them.
Zappa was
Right.
then playing to the gallery, which you would not associate that with someone like an incredible guy like Zappa. That it
Correct.
actually happened to
Correct.
him too. Was again a very interesting nugget from that whole thing. So
Yes.
wow, I mean, really
Ponty
cool.
is, Jean-Luc Ponty is somebody we got introduced to when we were in college, and it he there's this thing about when when violin would, first of all, to bring violin in a jazz rock atmosphere was something unique, just to think. So when a violin came, drummers would joke that we got to play softly now, and that's what he told me. So when Jean-Luc Ponty came and started playing his electric violin, the drummers looked at each other and they said, "My God, now we got to play really loud." I found that incredible.
Yeah,
That's just incredible. And
yeah,
aside from that, his dexterity with the instrument, and the way his influences, and being a Frenchman, he's imbibed this. There is this North African jazz bass player with him who was playing with him at that time. So you could feel the influences of those things coming into the music. And one of
right.
his finest tracks that I love is called Mirage. And it was a moment of my life to watch Dr. Subramaniam and Jean-Luc Ponty share the stage. There is a YouTube on this, and play that tune in Bombay. It was just amazing. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And I also we are rushing against time now, but I
Right.
really want to thank you for also giving your recommendations of the albums, of the jazz albums. I think that is very simple yet very nice thing to do, because in a sense, a lot of people still don't know. Are not into jazz music in India. And for example, one of the stories of Louis Banks I remember was when I was in college in 2002 or 1, I'm not sure, maybe it was 2001. And I the first time I heard Louis Banks was in this IIT Mumbai festival called Mood Indigo, which is very famous.
Right. Of
It's the
course.
biggest festival, and they were there at the pro night, and I was representing my college for some of the competitions there during the day, and in the evening was the pro night, and it was 4 nights, as you know. And he was there, I think, to the best of my memory, certainly Carl Peter, and there was Tawfiq Qureshi. So it was a fusion night. It was not a
Right.
jazz night, it was a fusion night. And I'm maybe it was Aman and Ayan Ali Khan, the Sarod maestro. So it was them, and I remember that's the first time I heard these slightly different, chordal formations from Louis. And it's it keeps you like it's a mind-opening thing. You are interested because now it's not just about the heart. You're also, your mind is now going there. Oh, what did he just play? What is that chord? Because we've been grown up on as on rock and roll. We have the limited set. It's nowhere close to the complexity of a jazz musician, the chords that a jazz musician. But I remember that being amazing, and I took that back with me, and the whole. From that angle, the fact that you've recommended those albums are really cool, and I will listen to them at
Oh,
least.
that's so nice of you. And the list sort of keeps growing, and the funny thing is, you will realize when we were in college and school, sharing music, exchanging each other's vinyls and cassette tapes was the way.
Yeah.
But now the access to music has changed totally. It's on your phones. It's just
Yes.
just there on the phone all the time, and
Yes.
you will hear sitting in Calcutta, sitting in Pune at and you will hear music that is being played in a French cafe, in a bar, and so the access is that sort of changed everything. So we really have a lot more to listen to, which
And
is
that whole era of, like you just mentioned that, oh, someone has that album. I remember this happened to us during the Pink Floyd, when we got into Pink Floyd, and no one had like the complete albums. No one had like the full album of Amagama, or Echoes. So the one person that did have, then you were kind of forming new
yes,
alliances
he was
just
the
to get.
star. He was the star. Yes, we
You
all
were the
had to be
star,
friends with him.
and you had to be really good friends. You had to like navigate, and oh, could I please have it? You have to put that question very, very at the right point. That whole thing is just gone. It's not
Yes,
there
yes.
anymore. And it
Even
was amazing.
if you just think about it, we are always listening to music on the headphones nowadays, most of the time.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
now that's a very individual experience. It's
Yes.
not as sitting amongst friends or sitting amongst family and having
Yeah.
a record playing and sipping a cup of tea or other stuff and enjoying music. It's a different experience, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
I like it. I like it the way you're putting things in. Well, but I know what you mean, And also, there was this thing of recommending an album, right? I mean, I
right,
remember
right.
someone recommended the first Led Zeppelin song. I would have, and he said, no, you must listen to this. This is amazing. This is like Kashmir, and it really was amazing. This whole
Yes.
recommendation, and then you also knew, wow, this guy really is listening to very good music, And then what
So
else
then
have
you
you got?
latch on to him. Then you latch on to him
Exactly,
for more suggestions.
exactly,
Yes.
because it was so organic,
Yes.
and that
And,
whole
and, and, the,
experience.
and the other thing that happened was with these local bands, the bands that played, the Savages, Waterfront, they all played their own music, but they all started off by doing cover. They were doing
Yeah,
covers,
yeah,
and they would do covers of great songs. And
yes,
most songs we hadn't heard. Our friend told me how the first Grateful Dead song he ever heard was played by High. So that introduced him to Grateful Dead. So in a similar way, there have been a lot of music that we've been introduced to from by hearing these local bands play. So they were our windows to the world of music. It's an amazing
right,
thing.
right,
That's the other thing that these bands did for us. They played
absolutely.
music and the way they chose the songs to perform.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that is. And there was also this. I don't know what else. So you are the writer here. So what word was it? There was this. There was this magic, this anticipation that you're going to listen to some other music, which is not there perhaps so much now, like you said, because of the age of access, and this whole thing of, oh well, what have you got, and that whole journey of, oh, we're going to get on Sunday. Are you sure? And then going and actually listening to the tape recorders. I mean, that whole journey, that whole anticipation was amazing. Now that you go back and you think about it, and
Absolutely.
so
And it's also very, very apt, and it's also that, of course, I'm sure will happens every day, that each song is associated with a memory, and
right,
it's a personal memory. And it's and one of the reasons for the book, while I realized this, was that they sort of signposts our lives in many ways, which we don't
right,
realize it at that moment, but later on, oh, I did this when I was doing this, so this was what happened when I got my first Hard Day's Night album from a
right,
friend. So that was the album which introduced me to the Beatles. I'll never forget that album. I'll always
right,
remember. So these
absolutely,
things, these are just amazing things. How pieces of music stick to you in your
yes,
mind, your heart,
yeah,
and in your soul, perhaps for the
right.
rest of.
I would like to ask the audience, if you have any questions, please pop them
Yes,
in, and I would be happy to ask them. And I'm sure Shantanu will be. And on that last note about the Hard Day's Night and the sharing albums thing, uh, basically, uh, what I wanted to ask you is, you now are firmly, you have this book represents, I think, quite a good. Uh, uh, Good representation of both worlds, the Indian music and the Eastern music, let's say, from this part, and the Western music. What do you think about these underlying merging points between the two? Would you Would you want to say
Yeah,
something
that's
about
a,
these strong
that's a,
currents of
that's a,
culture, so to
yeah,
speak?
yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. That's I guess that's very Indian, that is what who we are. You sitting in Pune, you listen to jazz, you listen to your dad's music, and you can both listen to it together, and you can learn and imbibe things from this. So this goes to show how syncretic our cultural receptacles are. We are open to ideas culturally, innovatively, and we just sort of latch on to the good that sort of comes and flows into us. So this is essentially India. That the fact that this is a book and not just my book, and this is not just my experience, it's your experience.
sure.
It's the experience of somebody growing up in Bombay. So that is the amazing thing, which is about this country of ours. Wherever you live, you have the strains of music from the heartland, and then you have the stuff that you listen to, and somewhere down the line they all merge in your head, and you
Right.
become this amazing receptacle of cultural influences. So it's it's our default setting, if I have to say, that to love and accept and things from
Yeah.
all over. and
Yeah.
and the fact that in today's times, the fact that such a default setting needs iteration
Mm-hmm.
to a comment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is who, as I said, if a UK band of immigrants come to India and sing Bapu's song, I mean, what more
Absolutely.
unifying thread can there be? And it
And
happened.
sorry, just to intervene, but a counter to that would be from this the UK immigrants bad would be George Harrison actually putting Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo,
Yes,
the
yes,
whole stroke
absolutely.
in My Sweet Lord. I mean, that
In my
was
sweet Lord,
that also
absolutely.
happened,
That
and
also happened.
how
Right,
pretty
right.
is that? How pretty is that?
Yes. How beautiful that is. How
Yeah,
beautiful that is. I guess, and so that's why there's, as a Bengali growing up in Calcutta, you cannot but listen to Rabindra Sangeet, and Rabindra Sangeet is something which you used to have at home. But
yeah,
yet, that's why there is one of the most foremost singers of Rabindra Sangeet in the book too, in from Calcutta. But that's who we are. We are not sort of compartmentalized into
correct.
people and set into a predetermined path. It's not
Yes,
not that's
and thank God for it, I would say.
thank God for it.
Um,
Yes, yes.
So tell me, are you thinking of another book? Is it too soon already, or is it
Wow.
putting your mind? Are you going to think of maybe a book on all these Indian musicians
Yes, yes,
would be
yes.
something that I would love,
Okay, okay.
just to see these the Dilip Balkrishnans of India, let's
Of
say,
the
to put
India,
it
yes, yes.
in all over, and I'm sure there are, like you said, why wouldn't they be? So
Yeah,
have you given it any thought?
there is talk of me writing a similar book on the music of Calcutta, and to dig out what Park Street in Calcutta and what it was before, the musical hub that it was. So there is talk of that. I haven't yet sort of put my mind to it. It's a little too early. And but yes, I wish and I hope I can write another one. But right now it looks it's such a journey. Yes, there is a
There is
Rahul
a question by Rahul
Chandra.
Chandra.
Yes, that's Rahul. I don't know if he remembers. I met him when I used to live in Pune. I have to say this, that I
Hi,
think.
Rahul.
Hi, Rahul. So his question is, how long did it take you to write this book? It is indeed. Thank you, Rahul, for saying that. It took me about 2.5 years to write this, because
Mhm.
I'm still working, and this had to be done while working. So I had to write on Sundays, and I can't sort of stay up that long at night. I'm not a good writer at night, so it had to be on Sundays and on off days. So it took a little longer than I initially thought it would. But yes, so about 2.5 years is something it took me to write that.
Right. Thank you for the question, Rahul. By the way, I got this gig because of Rahul, because I know him too. So it's a personal thing. But uh, any particular interviews that you've left out that couldn't make the book?
Yeah, There are actually quite a lot. I had because I needed a few sort of markers to decide on what I will keep and what I won't. And first one was, of course, that I had to. I decided I would write on musicians whom I had listened to live. If I hadn't
Right.
listened to live, I wouldn't write about them.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that was one. So in that sense, and then of course some had to be left out because it's also about access. You don't not It's not always that you get access to the person that you want, and there isn't
Sure.
much time. So it all sort of happens if you're lucky enough. And so a lot got left out because of that, because some were very short, and so it did, so they had to be left out. But in the end, so I was sort of brutal. I just decided that these are the guys we'd
Yeah.
keep.
But
Yeah.
that's really awesome. I think we are coming towards the end of our session. I want to thank you, Shantanu, but I also want to urge the audience to go and buy the book and read it. It really is amazing. I've read, I've almost gone through the book now, and it is so amazing. These little stories within the chapter is what I personally found very fascinating. And like I said about Dr. L. Subramaniam, I think that was one of them. So I do urge you to go and check out the book. It's called Calling Elvis by Shantanu Datta. And I hope you can give him feedback. It'll be a super read. So do it soon. And
Thank
thank you.
you. And before I sort of we sign off, I just want to say how special this is. Pune is a special place for me. I lived in Pune for about 3 years when I was with the Indian Express, and many of my friends I connected because of the festival, and they're all here. They're sort of commenting, and it's so wonderful. I only wish, if this wasn't a COVID year and the festival was live, I would have surely run come to Pune
Yes.
for this. And
Yes.
I'm incredibly grateful, and thank you. I have to thank you for having me. It was wonderful to reconnect and sort of get back to Pune. Pune is special. It will always be.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for such a wonderful session, sir. Hope everyone had a great experience. Join us for the next session, The Intelligence Behind Raw, after a 15 minutes short break at 1:45 p.m. Thank you.